Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us and welcome. This is the third in a series of CPQ webinars, and I'm Mark Young, M4 CPQ Sales Executive, and during today's webinar, we'll summarize the first two webinars that outlined the what is CPQ and the why it is so valuable to your organizations to address this important part of the sales process. And then we'll spend most of today's session focusing on the how to achieve that value. Before we begin, there's just a couple of logistical items. You'll notice that you have a Q&A box on the side of your screen. Simply enter your questions there. We'll address all of the questions at the end of the presentation. And then also, in the center of your screen, you have an icon with a double arrow. Just click on it, and it'll set your view to a full screen. Also joining me today is Brian Emer, Director of CPQ Infor Consulting Services. Brian has more than 15 years of experience in working with clients to implement CPQ solutions, and he and his experienced and successful team have had several very, very successful implementations. Brian oversees the governance of projects, leads client steering groups, and is the key point of escalation for any implementation issues, and he has prepared to share his experience with you on how to achieve the benefits of CPQ. Next, just a very quick review of the agenda. We'll review the prior webinars very, very quickly, and then Brian will share that implementation experience and approach, and then we'll have Q&A. So refreshing our memory on the what is CPQ. This is the market definition. Configure it, price it, quote it. These processes probably already exist in your organization. They may not be automated. They may rely on multiple technologies, Excel, Word, various, older configurators. They may not be integrated, and they may be departmentally siloed. So customer service might have one, sales might have one, manufacturing might have one, etc. This is Infor's definition, expanding the traditional view of CPQ to include fulfillment activities, actually manufacturing and delivering the quoted products and services to the end customer. Further, the typical definition of CPQ doesn't include what Infor CPQ brings to the table in terms of, configuring more than just products to include systems of products and services. Price, not just creating a price to the end customer, but also calculating cost, margins, discounts, price adders to drive dynamic pricing models that enable your distribution channels more flexibility. Quote, it's not just about creating a document. It also addresses the need to enable self-service across all of the channels with a web-enabled tool that efficiently and effectively manages simple and complex quoting requirements. And finally, fulfill, automating the quote-to-order conversion process and delivering all of the information to the ERP to create BOMs, routes, transits, to deliver accurate orders to your clients. Benefits of CPQ, these numbers represent an Aberdeen study of best-in-class users of CPQ solutions. And these are significant numbers. a 104% increase in average deal size, a 27% decrease in the average sales cycle, and a 20% or 26% increase in reps achieving quota. Those are significant benefits on the sales side. Similarly, the quote to order conversion rate with best-in-class companies using CPQ is 30% higher. Would you like that quote to conversion rate? Why enforce CPQ? We deliver significant real results for our clients. And Gorman Rupp has increased its sales by speeding new product introductions, and with the addition of document automation, they reduced the time it took for them to deliver a proposal from 3 weeks to 15 minutes. Great Plains, Tom Evans, has decreased costs by eliminating the need to hire more customer service representatives, even though they have grown their business over a 10-year period by 5x. They have had to hire no one. Celix significantly improved their agents' productivity by ensuring 100% order accuracy every time. And a part of this process, Celix reduced the amount of manual effort they spent to support the process. Wausau, as a distributor, differentiated its brand by providing an improved professional buying experience, offering superior customer service within CPQ, and has significantly improved their ability to hold their margins. Enforce CPQ, as we learned in the July webinar, significantly impacts excuse me, the returns you can have on that sales process. The value of increased sales plus reduced costs divided by the typical investment in software and services over the 5-year period delivers at least a 5 to 8x return on investment. There are very few CFOs that I've met that would not jump at the opportunity to achieve a 5 to 8x ROI. How do we do it? Well, first of all, when building the ROI model, we consider the impact on your sales process. When you can generate more quotes, when you can improve win rates, and you can increase deal size, it can have a very, very significant impact on the business. How do we do that? By having more time to quote, enabled by anywhere, anytime access to tools on any device. 2, by having more people quoting, enabled by self-service with little dependency on engineering or sales support, excuse me. And by making the quoting process faster, enabled by an intuitive, efficient quoting tool. We improve win rates by offering products customers want, enabled by tailoring your products to meet specific and changing customer demands. By making sellers more effective, enabled by quick and accurate responses to customer requests, with compelling product information. By creating a better buying experience, enabled by personalized customer proposals that include product, pricing, engineering information, warranty, installation instructions, whatever you think your clients need can be packaged into that buying experience. And how do we increase deal size? By increasing upselling, enabled by suggesting the very correct features at the right time. Improving cross-selling by offering your complete product catalog, product and/or services catalog during that quoting process. And by reducing discounts, enabled by calculating accurate costs and having dynamic pricing. When building your ROI model, we consider the impact of reducing costs as well. How? By reducing pricing errors, reducing returns, rework, and scrap, and optimizing headcounts. How do you reduce pricing errors? By presenting valid prices enabled by defining a single source for pricing with system-generated cost, price, and margin calculation. By handling all pricing scenarios enabled by defining intelligent, flexible pricing structures. And by always providing current pricing enabled by immediate availability to price changes. By ensuring the right product is always selected, enabled by only presenting valid options and combinations of products. By giving complete product specifications enabled by providing excuse me, product collateral and specifications during the configuration management process. By generating current manufacturing information enabled by providing manufacturing and engineering changes that are available immediately to the shop floor. How much can you optimize headcount? By eliminating manual and redundant work enabled by having systems working together. By automatically creating all needed information, generating accurate proposals, BOMs, routes, drawings, transit, work instructions. And by making end users self-sufficient, enabled by providing self-service tools for quoting, ordering, and status inquiries. That really summarizes how we help you build an intelligent return on investment model for this process. We'll work with you to clearly articulate the challenges you're facing, document the specific areas of improvement, and quantify the benefits to your organization, and build a model that you can present to the business that shows the return on investment in CPQ. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brian and have him, we talked in the first two webinars on the what and the why of CPQ, and now Brian is going to share how do you achieve those benefits. Brian?
Very good. Thanks, Mark.
I'll turn the presentation rights over to you.
Okay, actually, yeah, I think I'm good. I can just move the slides along there. So, Welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time today. I just wanted to cover a few items on how we approach and how we look at the CPQ implementation cycle and implementation process. There's a number of different avenues and a number of different models that we've experienced over our years of doing this, and so it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all model, and that's kind of the overriding theme and overriding goal of our implementation team, is really to work with our customers and be that trusted advisor and work with them in the way that is needed to see their project go live and be successful. There's a lot of factors that come into that, and we'll kind of touch on some of those things here as to how we can make up a successful project team between the Infor consulting organization and the customer's organization, and put the right folks on the team and the right roles and the right responsibilities and achieve successful outcomes. So this first slide here, what I was trying to encompass here is, and these are potential models. This isn't to say that it's an exhaustive list. There's a number of different ways to do this. But the idea here is if we start with where I've called that a train and design model, and I'm looking at this just to level set, I'm looking at this from my consulting team's organization. This is the model that we would propose to a customer. So when I say train and design, what we're looking at, that would be a lower cost option, meaning less consulting hours, where we, as the consulting team, would provide that product training. That's a necessity. That's a must, right? We need to train the users, the implementers from the customer team. We need to train them on how to use the modules, how to set up the modules, how to write the configuration rules, how to work with the 2D, 3D CAD models, that sort of thing. And then what we call design workshops, and I'll hit on our workshop and scoping discussions a little bit further in the presentation, but that's kind of the bare minimum, if you will, that we would see in kind of a train and design approach. So if you're at all familiar with, from a methodology perspective, that's really just getting a project started. You could then encompass and say, well, there's a build phase of the project or an implementation phase of that project. So at that point, we would then leverage and rely heavily on customer resources to build the rest of those rules and to build out those CAD models, maybe work on enhancements or integration touch points, that type of thing. So that's a model that's been very, very successful for us. That's a model that works for customers that have a strong team and have an available team. We certainly recognize that your teams are running the business and keeping the lights on at your business. So how can they be pulled away from their full-time job? If that's been set up that they can and you have the strong resources, this is a model that certainly is possible. Going out to the next layer, what we call a shared implementation approach, and this is probably, I would say, where the majority of our projects fall, is in this shared model, where we start to, we encompass that train and design. That has to happen. And then we start to add some more responsibilities from the Infor consulting team, things like you see there, project management, system testing support. So we may not be running the entire system test definition and system test process as a consulting organization, but providing some guidance on how should we plan system test, and then maybe the team is going out and executing and conducting system test. Out of system test, there's typically going to be things like issue resolution. How can we provide some help to resolve those issues and answer any questions coming out of system test? Rules development and CAD model development in a shared implementation, that is typically where our team will provide some more thought leadership coming out of the design workshops. One example I'll give you is maybe it's a scenario where we build the first product line together. So we do the train and design section of a project, and then we move into, let's pick a product line that your company makes, and let's build that together. That's kind of a shared approach. That gets your team very comfortable with the rules writing process. They see some final results. We work together for the defined period of time on that and get things completed. And then the customer team can really pick it up and run from there and finish out the rest of the implementation items. And then the final, kind of what I call the full project team, that's what I would call a traditional, consulting and customer partnership project where, for sake of discussion, let's say it's a 12-month project. We would assign as an Infor consulting project team, full-time resources dedicated to that project in all of the appropriate roles. And I'll touch on some of the roles, everything from project management to infrastructure and rules writing and so on and so forth. So that's kind of our full project offering, dedicated full-time resources. So those are some models to kind of think about as you embark on a project like this. But again, our goal is to work with the customers to find the right model. And it's also, I think, an important piece. It's not a one and done type decision. We see projects kind of move back and forth between these depending on resource availability, duration of the project, phase of the project. We can certainly work together to move resources into the areas needed. So from an overall approach into those models, then, and really these things apply to all of the models, we build our implementation on these 6 key foundational items: success factors, the people that are involved both from our team and from our customer teams, what roles those folks have to play and what responsibilities that they need to take on to make any project successful, basing our implementation approach on the Infor deployment methodology, having a good set of guidelines and governance around a project. We oftentimes merge with customers' methodologies as well, and we'll work, if you have an IT governance structure, an IT governance methodology, we'll work to marry those two together so that we have a combined methodology that works for our project. I mentioned earlier scoping workshops. That's a big part of our getting started and a big part of our overall value proposition to the consulting side, is to bring that overall design and approach of how we're going to implement CPQ for your business and getting that out of the gate so that we're going down the right path from the beginning. And then talk about just the overall steps in the implementation plan. So critical success factors, I've hit on a few of these, talked about. One of our goals is we want to establish a joint team. Is this, not looking for the opportunities to say, Infor, come in and just plug this thing in for us and we'll make it run. We certainly can provide the resources and the needs that you may have around that, but we recognize that the majority of the time customers, this is a configurator is a long-term solution for a customer. Your product information resides there, your pricing, your manufacturing. So you're going to want to have folks on your team that know how to do this. And so knowledge transition throughout the project is an important part. Determining the resource levels for the project. And that balances a number of different factors, as we all know in IT-related projects. How fast do we want to go? How quickly can we make resources available? What's the overall scope? What are the competing priorities? And working together early on in the project to have those straightforward discussions about what we'd like to see versus what's really feasible as we start to look at people's day-to-day responsibilities. Looking at your ERP and manufacturing process as it relates to CPQ. CPQ can certainly be stood up in a standalone manner and can kind of cover the configure, price, quote, order capabilities, but there's always touch points to your manufacturing and your business process. We can, talk about many different ways to integrate those touch points, whether it's a fully, tightly integrated solution or more of an over-the-wall type solution of let's focus on providing our dealers and distributors with a world-class quoting and configuration solution, and because of item A, B, or C on our internal to-do list, we may not look at a fully integrated solution on day one and look at how that may impact our ERP system. So we'll look at that overall process with you of the potential opportunities there. I talked about the knowledge transition and leverage resources across multiple project roles. We do that on our team, and what I mean by that is, maybe it's rules writing and sales portal. So our sales portal being the front end piece, may not need 2 full-time resources for that. Maybe it's a resource that can play some of the rules writing role, and they also work on some of the sales portal activities. So looking to impart the knowledge and skills of multiple components of CPQ on your various resources so that they can pick up multiple areas of this, and we don't need a resource necessarily for every single phase of the project and every single facet of the application, going forward. We talk about the people to fill all of these roles, and again, 6 key areas here that we see from a people skill set that it takes to make a CPQ implementation grow. Any good project is founded on project management. We need that leadership, we need that structure, we need that organization to keep a project moving forward, to raise those critical issues when they come up, to raise any issues when they come up, and make sure they're getting resolved accordingly. Product configuration is the heart of our solution, certainly, and understanding how that configurator can bring the opportunities in the business, the pricing, the manufacturing, all of the details and the power that lies within that configurator, unlocking that and imparting that knowledge onto your teams to run your business with. Business process and ERP, I just hit on this a little bit a moment ago, but we don't want to forget this. This is not just a CPQ in a vacuum solution. We certainly recognize this is running your business. This is bringing sales in the door. This needs to be manufactured. Getting a quote and an order that can't be built doesn't do any of us any good at the end of the day. So we need to look at it from an overall process standpoint. I work closely with our ERP counterparts from a consulting standpoint, our Sightline teams, our LN teams, anywhere we have integration, we work very, very closely with those teams on the implementation side to make sure we're covering all of this when we have a project that's integrated between CPQ and one of the Infor ERPs. Integration, not just between ERPs. That's certainly a big part. We have orders that need to be passed in. We have manufacturing data that needs to be passed in. We have master data, your customer masters as an example. Your customers are the heart of our sales portal, so we need to have that data available and out there. So we need to pull that from one source of the truth and have that so there's not dual maintenance involved. So those integration touch points, and then I'll expand it out from there. The configurator in the CPQ suite has a number of strong APIs and custom integration touch points, if you will, so you can leverage the power of the configurator potentially from a website that you may have today, and you want to provide some configuration capability from that. Maybe it's from an internal CRM system that you have and we want to punch out to some configuration. A lot of opportunities to call into and integrate into configuration solutions from other applications. So the CPQ suite certainly brings a lot of that to bear, but always can be thinking about other ways to leverage the power of the configurator and ways to use that from other applications within your organization as well. Development is a key piece, and enhancement development, extensions of the product. We understand that not everyone's business runs exactly the same way. Not everyone's quoting process is exactly the same. So how can we provide that ability to tailor and extend the solution past what it has, with the out-of-the-box capability, to provide that last-mile functionality. And if it's not there from Infor, how can we make it easy that we can either provide it as a consulting group or your team can provide it with the appropriate technical skill set. And that's a key point as well, is the extensions and enhancements that my team does from a consulting standpoint. If the customer desires, they can do those extensions and enhancements as well. We do not modify the core of the product. We do not modify what I like to call core code. There are extensions and hook points, if you will, built into the product that allow my consulting team to do that, but they also allow you as the customer to extend the application as well. And we can train or teach you how to do that if so desired. And then the CAD piece is certainly for those of you that have products with the visualization aspect, our 2D and 3D automation products, and ability to render your products in our CAD engines and drive those from the configuration entity is certainly a strong component of our solution, and there's skills required there to build your models in the CAD systems and then drive them from the configurator. So that's another key part of our overall solution. Key project roles, I won't spend a lot of time on this. This is diving into a little bit more into the details of some of those roles I just talked about. Talked about project management. Solution architect, this is a very important role up front, understanding in the initial phases of a project, what is the overall, is this a phased rollout or is this a big bang? Are we going to get all of our product lines into the configurator on day one? Will we phase that rollout? Starting to have the conversations, how are we going to manufacture this product? Is it going to be a manual rekey into a back-end system, or are we fully integrated, or will that come over time? So making sure we understand all of those touch points in the overall solution. And you can kind of see some more detail there on the different roles. Our implementation consulting team, the heart of the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day training and knowledge transfer that we provide to get the CPQ solution up and running and empower your team to live with it long-term and be able to operate it long-term. Integration consultants and developers, a lot of synergy between that integration and development need potentially as we talk about integrating to other third-party systems or integrating to various ERP systems and utilizing those APIs. And then the CAD model development, working in SolidWorks or Inventor to create those CAD models as appropriate. So scoping workshops. The scoping workshop component is, as I mentioned early on, is a big piece of our overall methodology and our overall approach. For those of you that are familiar with the suite of CPQ, I look at it as there's 5 modules to it. So we really look at this as we almost have 5 parallel mini projects within an overall CPQ suite implementation. We have the sales portal, we have the configurator, we have our document automation, we have our 2D automation, and our 3D automation. So what we like to do with each of those is there's an overall solution architecture that I talked about a moment ago of kind of what's our overall vision here, what's the first phase, what are we looking at. But then as I take each of those 5 modules, we look at it and we need to do a scoping workshop for each one of those modules and really take a deep dive into your products and your business process around configurator. So how do you do your pricing? How do you do your manufacturing? How do you want to ask the questions? Is color first or is size first? For a simple example, very flexible on how we implement those things, but we need to get those questions out. Part numbers become a very passionate discussion for most companies. Are we going to start with a generic part number? Are we going to have a product family as our kind of starting part? So that, hammering all of that out very early on in the process through these workshops. Taking an example from the CAD automation side, looking at your 2D renderings of your product, if you have those today, let's look at what you have today. Are those good enough? Do we need more detail? Do we want less detail? Really reviewing where do they come up in the process? Do they need to be present throughout the entire configuration, or is this more of an after-the-fact CAD model that we'd like to see at the completion of a configuration? So all of those type of questions come out in these scoping workshops, and this is the first phase of any project that we embark on, is what modules are in scope, and let's get through the detailed scoping sessions and design sessions for that module and come back and bring the whole thing together so that then we can embark on the build phase of the project, going off and building those rules or building those models. So this is the scoping workshop piece is certainly where we start, and we'll break it down into the individual modules and then more details below that as well. Then here's just a quick high-level summary of kind of key implementation activities, maybe what a very high-level sample project might look like. Over a period of time here, we install the product. We go through, you can see they're kind of layered in there, some of the training. So we train on each of the modules that you see in there. And then there's a design line, if you look at like configurator design. And then the next line down, configurator rule development. We go into a longer period of time to build that out. We kind of repeat the structure for 2D. We go through the training and design period, then we build out those things. So very repetitive structure, from a methodology. Many of these things can run in parallel, like they're depicted here. We can, there are some dependencies that we like to look at. Configurator is typically where we'd want to start, but we can run a lot of these tracks in parallel, assuming that there's resources available to do that from your side and or from our side. We can apply the resources to make that happen. Leading up towards the end of the project, then we get into rounds of system testing and end user training prior to a go live event. So pretty traditional project plan, project strategy from that standpoint, but there are a number of more detailed work streams that you would typically see in a CPQ project as you kind of peel the layers back a bit more. I think that is the bulk of the material I had planned today, so we can certainly field some questions. I see a few coming in here. We'll take a moment, and if you have some questions over on the right-hand side, you could pose a question online, and take a minute and try to answer any questions you all may have. I do see one here that's come in asking about, do we only work with SolidWorks and Inventor? On the 2D side, we work with SolidWorks and Inventor. And then for 3D, we work with SolidWorks and PTC's Creo. So those are the CAD systems that are supported and available from the 2D and 3D side. And there was another question on the video. Will the video be sent out? Mark, I believe that is made available, the recording of the presentation, to everyone?
Yes, indeed. The presentation has been recorded today and will be made available, Amanda, you said within the week? So yes, all three webinars have been recorded and are available. So if you missed the first two, you can see them to review that material, and also this one in about a week.
Okay. Another question of, do you import a BOM from the CAD model? So typically, the typical approach is that the bill of material information is an output from the configuration rules. So we'll typically build the bill structure, depending on how many levels it has or whether it's more of a flat bill. We'll build that coming out of the logic from the rules engine as part of the process. We have had a few customers that have chosen, and we can do this, it's not the typical approach, but we can read data and generate a BOM from a CAD model. There's some you have to have enough detail in your CAD model, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You have to have enough information there that we can query that out, and then depending on the timing and the user experience you're looking for, that may take a bit more time to process. So customers that have done things like that, it's typically more of a background process where they're reading some of that more detailed manufacturing information and calculations. But I know, if I'm understanding the question correctly, there's, as an example, we have a query rule for our 2D models. So you can actually let the model solve based on a few inputs, generate a CAD model, and then you can query that the model to pull back some information into your configuration. So there is a bidirectional integration there, transfer of information between the CAD models and the configuration engine. Another question around what is the most important output of the design workshop, starting with the configurator. From the configurator standpoint, I would say the most important output is really just that overall direction. So where are we going to start at from a configuration standpoint? I mentioned a few things of, part numbers as an example. So let's say if I make trucks, I'll just pick a truck. Am I going to start with truck, and maybe I make garbage trucks and sewage trucks? So am I going to start with just truck, and then I'll figure out the details from allowing the user to answer questions, more of a guided selling approach? Or do I want to start with garbage truck as a part number and sewage truck as a part number? That's another option. Or you could take it down further. Maybe my dealer base knows, my model numbers, and they know which one's which, so I need to have 7 model numbers in there. So that's one output of that configuration, and we can really work with any of those. It's just the way we kind of invoke the rule set and how we fire it off. But getting that level of agreement between the configuration team, the sales team, the marketing team, and how we're going to present this to the overall customer. And then really peeling it back from there, now that we've started to answer those questions, what's the rule structure going to look like? Where can we reuse rules? So I'll take the truck example again. Let's say that we put the same engine in all of our trucks, or at least it's an option in all of our trucks. So we may choose to architect a rule set around engines. And that engine rule set, for a certain line of trucks, maybe only one engine is available, and we can put that logic in there. But now, from a go-forward perspective, I know that when I need to make an addition to my engine rule set, or we're sunsetting an engine, it'll no longer be available, there's one place I have to go do that. I don't have to go into 50 different configurations and decide which one made that engine available. We look to, kind of look where we can share that logic and put the logic in one place so it's easy to maintain for you guys going forward. So those are the type of decisions that come out of the configurator workshop. We try to help you think about the rule sets that way and how you can structure them for ease of use and ease of maintenance. Another question that's come in here: if we don't have a current person writing rules, what is the experience profile that has been successful with your current users? So the rules writing process and the rules writing experience is, there's a number of layers to it, if you will, from a power standpoint. I guess that's the best way to say it. There's a tremendous amount of capability and power within the configurator. Writing some of the base rules, getting some screen rules generated and starting to build out a rule set is a very straightforward task. We try to make it easy. We make it drag and drop. We make it user-friendly to put in lists of data. So I want to ask a question, what color do you want? I can put in a list of colors. I can filter that list of colors based on just a few clicks and selections to say, if I've picked this product, only make these colors available. So some very straightforward rules logic and building those things out. Someone that has background in product or engineering or IT is certainly the strongest candidate that understands the logical thought process. One way I like to say it is kind of the if-then-else logic of being able to kind of break your product down into, if I choose this, then I must do this, otherwise I can do this. That kind of thought process. someone that has good Excel skills is probably the best analogy we can come up with. And I don't just mean, simple addition formulas and things. Someone that's been into using Excel, doing some of the more advanced functions, in Excel, and understands what a function might be, to where I can, use it for, there's arguments that get passed in and there's return values that come back. So that now you're starting to peel the onion back into more of the technical and more of the advanced components of the rule writing as you start to build out the complexities in your products. Many customers then will, you'll get to the point where you may have a more technical resource, a development-like resource that may be part of the team. They're not needed to write all of the rules, but as you get into some more advanced concepts and some more things that you want to do, there's always a way to do it, but you may be able to do it a bit more quickly, a bit more efficiently if you have a more technical resource that's part of the team. And that's where our team oftentimes honestly plays a role, is we may bring that technical rules writing person into the team to augment your team for some of those more complex areas, and that's an option as well. All right. Let me see here. We are considering CPQ as a standalone solution without the tie into ERP. Do you know any users that have taken this approach? Absolutely. So CPQ can certainly be a standalone, and we have many customers that run it that way, with the goal being, to the dealer user or even your internal sales folks. There's a website that's out there with the CPQ sales portal on it. I can log into that website, I can configure, I can get a price, I can print a bid document, I get a quote, and I can place an order. So as a user, I'm happy. And as a manufacturer, if that's your goal, is to make that user happy, and they're placing an order with you, how we get it into the back-end system can be a separate discussion then, because now I've enabled my selling community, whether it's dealers, distributors, agents, sales reps, whoever it is, to go ahead and use my CPQ solution. And now I've placed that order, and we have customers that literally print them out and rekey them into their back-end system. We have customers where we've leveraged an EDI module that may be available in a legacy ERP system, and we've formatted an output, coming out of the Infor CPQ data to leverage an EDI input. Or we've done the full integration, if it's one of our integrated ERP systems, or we've done custom integration to ERPs as well. So absolutely can start with CPQ. It can stand on its own 2 feet and provide a tremendous amount of value to your sales channel. Another question came in. Once you have a configuration from a customer, how does it relate to the engineering BOM or the manufacturing BOM? A lot of this will depend on the ERP system in use and whether you're using engineering BOMs or not. Typically, the typical approach is we will create the as manufactured BOM dynamically. So that order comes in, that configuration comes in from a customer. The configuration engine will create the manufacturing job in the ERP system and provide the as configured bill of material for that particular job. If a similar product or the same product is ordered 6 hours later by someone else, we'll create another order, we'll create another job, we'll create another manufactured BOM to that. So don't know if that directly answers the question or not, but we create those bills of materials dynamically from the configuration engine at the time of the order placement. All right, I think that's all the questions I see at this point. I think I've answered most of them. I don't see any that I've missed. So if there's any other questions, we can certainly field those, or if not, I thank everyone for their time. Mark, any closing remarks from your end?
No, if there's no further questions, I'd just like to thank everyone for their time, in today's webinar. We hope it's been useful for all of you. And, following the event, your browser will get directed to a brief survey, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. And I'd also just remind you that, this webinar was focused on the how. There were 2 previous webinars that were focused on the what and the why. This is becoming an extraordinarily valuable space for our clients to invest in. I mean, clients have invested in their ERPs, they've invested in CRM systems. There's been, very little investment in the real sales process, the configure, price, quote, and order process. And there is tremendous value to be unlocked for your organizations. I would encourage you to educate yourselves and, leverage us if you have questions. And with that, I'll just thank you and wish you a good day.